So the first segment was stiff-necked, and we're going to move into the second segment, wicked festivals. We're going to move into the second segment, wicked festivals. Okay? Now, I want you all to pay attention. Okay? So, we're in captivity because many of you don't believe that America is captivity. Okay? Now, we're in captivity. This is my neighborhood. This is my block. Let's clean up our communities. Now, cleanliness is close to godliness. So we should keep the areas in which is our habitat, we should keep them clean. Okay? It has nothing to do with anything, right? However, it's not your community, black man. It's not your neighborhood. It's not your house. It's not your car. You don't own any of it. I promise you. Okay? I promise you that. I promise you that. You don't have to take my word for face value right now, okay? Because to some people, that's only a perspective. But we'll see as we continue on further, right? On whether or not that's the perspective or the truth. Okay? So, now, there are 7, so this segment is called Wicked Festivals. Wicked Festivals. Okay. What is a festival? What's a festival? It's like, let me just go ahead. All right, so what's a festival, right? A festival is a day or period of celebration. Typically a religious commemoration, typically a religious commemoration, a tabulation of saints, days and other festivals, an annual celebration or anniversary, okay? All right, so a festival is a celebration, right? Okay, now, Christ had already given us 7 feast days that you sit down and you eat and you drink and you marry, you dance and you whatever, okay? The 7 feast days or the 7 holy days. Holy days, holidays. Holy days, holidays. Y'all get where I'm going with this? Christ already gave us 7 original holy days or 7 original set-apart days. Okay? 1 is the Passover or the Pesach, Leviticus 23, 4 through 8. The Passover, Leviticus 23, 4 through 8. 2 is the Feast of Unleavened Bread, Leviticus 23 and 6, chapter 6. 3, the first fruits, Leviticus 23 and 10, chapter 10. The Feast of Weeks or the Pentecost, Leviticus 23, chapter 16. The Feast of Trumpets, Leviticus 23, chapter 24. Leviticus Unleavened Bread, Leviticus chapter 23, verse 6. The First Fruits, Leviticus chapter 23, verse 10. The Feast of Weeks or Pentecost, Leviticus chapter 23, verse 16. The Feast of Trumpets, Leviticus chapter 23, verse 24. The Day of Atonement, Leviticus chapter 16, chapter 23, verses 26 through 32. And then we have the infamous Feast of Tabernacle or Booths, or the Sukkot. Leviticus chapter 23 and verse 24. Now, I want to focus on the Feast of Tabernacles, okay? Because we have some discrepancies going on here, okay? Let's go to Leviticus chapter 23. Okay, you know what? I don't want to confuse many of you, all right? I'll do it a different way, okay? The devil, those are the 7 feast days of Christ, okay, that he ordained in the scriptures. Now, all of those days point to Christ. Now, I want to say something here. All of the feast days, they point to Christ. Okay? Now, it says, a man who does not teach people the least of the commandments. I think that scripture is misconstrued. Because people say, because I don't teach the feast days, they are the least of the commandments, that I will be the least in heaven. But all of those days are a shadow of the real thing to come. All of those holy days, those annual holy days, because that's what they are. The scriptures, I just gave you the scriptures. Those are annual holy days. And the majority of those days are not supposed to be celebrated in captivity. I don't care what none of you say. I'm going to drag my balls with this. And eventually, the reason why I really haven't done anything, because I do not have the authority to annul the Torah. I do not have the authority to annul the law of Moses, which is the reason why I let you all go ahead and continue to do what you're going to do. Anyways, I'm not letting you do anything because I'm only a man. You all are grown. You're going to do what you want to do. I'm speaking to the circumcision. Many of you, if not all of you, are celebrating the holy days and celebrating the set-apart days in vain. Now, for all of you, all of the rest of you right there, I don't want to misconstrue your thoughts, because you have the holy days that are set apart, instructed in the Bible, and then you have the white man's holidays. The white man's holidays are false replications of Christ's holy days. The white man's holidays are false replications of Christ's holy days. The white man's holidays are false replications of Christ's holy days. But, so, teach us the holy days. Well, I'm not going to teach you the holy days. Here's why. Because to me, it's confusion. It's confusion, and it brings about, it negates the simplicity in Yahushua HaMashiach. All of those days are of a shadow of the truth, who is Christ. And all of those holy days point to Yahushua HaMashiach. Now, should you get some type of information of those holy days or those holidays? Hey, listen. See, I'm not, even though I have slanderers and people that despise me, and I may despise their ways, that does not mean if somebody is right or they're close or they're very good at something that they do, and if I have to send somebody their way to get the truth, then I'm willing to do that, because it's not about emotion. It's not about emotion with me. Now, I hate to say this, but in many cases, the Camp IUIC, they do a fairly strong job with the feast days in reference to when they are and this, that, and the third. But still, even though there's a trick, because the moon still comes in 10 days too soon every year. But I'm not going to get into all of that right now. Okay? All right? So I just don't want to get into all that right now. I thought that Jedediah Malik had something going on with the Enoch calendar to an extent. But for real, at the end of the day, it's all in vain. There's a simplicity in Yahushua HaMashiach. And if I were all of you, matter of fact, I'm not even going to say that. If you want to learn about if you're somebody, if you want to learn about I suggest you not do it now. I suggest you become more seasoned in the Word of God before you start to dibble and dabble with genealogies, the feast days, and all of those things. But right now, which I know that I'm telling you in righteousness, there's a simplicity in Christ. There's a simplicity in Yahushua HaMashiach. But I'm explaining to you all Christ's holy days. I'm explaining to you all his holy days. I'm mentioning them to you so you can know where the white man got his holidays. And the whole objective of the holidays is to mislead you from the truth. Because if you were to, even though you're not supposed to celebrate the holy days in captivity, the whole objective to celebrating the whole thought process of attempting to celebrate them will bring you closer to Christ. So he says, well, listen, we don't want them to even though they'll be celebrating those days in vain, they'll be celebrating the holy days, and they'll know what the holy days are about. So we just want to we want to derail that all together and just give them completely false days, our invented holidays, which are all of wicked origin. So many people think that Thanksgiving, think that the origin of Thanksgiving is the murder and slaughter of the indigenous people. No, that they just built a sacrificial, the Caucasian just built a sacrificial project off of that, but it goes back deeper. And I'm going to prove it to you. Okay? So now, I want to go and show you all what I am talking about. I have to go all the way down to the bottom of my Instagram page. Now, some of you, if you want to get a glass of wine and scroll all the way down, I don't have that many posts because I really stopped posting for the most part on Instagram because some very peculiar things have been happening over my phones and things of that nature. And so I don't really, okay. So this device is about to die, but let's see if I can knock off this lesson real quick. But that's okay because I have another device I use. And hopefully the timing is perfect and I can go ahead and get the information off of this device before okay. So a false tradition, right? So let's go to 1 Kings 12:33. 1 Kings 12:33. Let's go to the Bible. Let's go to the Old Testament, and let's go to 1 Kings 12:33. Okay, so I want you to pay attention, right? This is 1 Kings 12:33. Is that right? Yes. And it reads, so he offered upon the offer which he had made in Bethel, the 15th day of the 8th month, the 15th day of the 8th month, even in the month which he had devised of his own heart, and ordained a feast unto the children of Israel. And he offered upon the altar a burnt offering. Okay, let's start at verse 32. And Jeroboam ordained a feast in the 8th month on the 15th day of the month, like unto the feast that is in Judah. And he offered upon the altar. So did he in Bethel, sacrificing unto the calves that he had made. And he placed in Bethel the priests of the high places which he had made. Okay? So, what's going on here? Is it explains that a man named Jeroboam ordained in his own heart a feast unto the likeness of Sukkot, or a feast that is in the likeness unto the Feast of Tabernacles, a substitute festival, which would occur after Sukkot, which would occur after the Feast of Tabernacles. Okay? So understand that Jeroboam had lived. Now, here's my point. This man, Jeroboam, he was an Israelite, but he had lived outside of Israel in the days of King Solomon. So Jeroboam had lived outside. Why is that important? Why is that important? Why is it important that he lived outside of Israel? Because Israel was where our people occupied. King Solomon was our king. For he had came in contact with pagan traditions of other people in Mizraim, for pagan traditions of other people in Egypt. Almost all the pagan holidays. So, this man Jeroboam had lived outside of Israel. And when he came back to Israel, he tried to teach people. He ordained in his own heart that he got from where? The other nations, because he lived outside of the other nations. That's why here in America, and just like in any other place, we're supposed to be over there in Israel right now, but we're not, right? Because of our disobedience, we've been kicked outside of the land of Israel. So what you all need to understand is that if we're in captivity now, see, he brought those customs back to Israel because he was living outside of Israel, where the other nations were. So we're in captivity. We're among the other nations. So the other nations, they don't follow the holy days of Elohim. They don't have any respect for them. Instead, they follow their own holidays, such as Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Easter, and so forth. You understand what I'm saying? So that's basically what's going on here, right? Now, One Kings 11:40. It tells you that. 1 Kings 11 verse 40. It says, Solomon sought therefore to kill Jeroboam, and Jeroboam. Sought to kill Jeroboam. And Jeroboam arose and fled into Egypt unto Shishak, king of Egypt, and was in Egypt until the death of Solomon. See? So Solomon wanted to kill him. Why? Because he was somebody that went against the laws of God. So he fled Israel and went amongst the other nations until the death of King Solomon. Then he came back after the death of King Solomon and taught the Israelites a false Sukkot that came after. Now, even today, the Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles, has already passed. And here we are with Thanksgiving a month later. This was way before the indigenous Indians. This was way before the Indians. Way before the indigenous people. So they didn't even, you don't even know if this is the actual day that the Indians were slaughtered or whatever, this, that, and the third. But even if it is, All that they did was take it and apply it to what Jeroboam did about 3,000 years ago prior to that happening. Do you understand what's going on here? See, because there are many peoples out there that hate the laws of Elohim. Okay? Now, like I said, I wouldn't necessarily attempt to get into all of those feast days until you become far more knowledgeable, until you become far more understanding of the laws of God and become more skilled. Then maybe you can start diving into these feast days, and hopefully you'll understand that really they all just point up to Christ. They all just lead to Christ. You understand what I'm saying? So, moving forward, let's go to Amos chapter 5. Amos chapter 5, verse 21 and 22. This is Amos chapter 5, verses 21 and 22. And listen to what Christ is going to say to black people. He told Amos to tell black people, I despise your feast days. I hate and I despise your feast days. And I do not savor your sacred assemblies. I have no delight in the things that you're celebrating. Though you offer me burnt up. So basically right there, that's all you need to know. Christ despises our celebrations. Why? Because even if the wicked circumcision is taking the holy set apart days and celebrating them incorrectly, or whether those who are not at all in the truth, who are complete unbelievers, who don't even believe in the holy days, who are taking upon the white man's holidays, which aren't the holy days at all. The Torah, this is segment 3, okay? The Torah is the scroll of Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. In the Torah is the basic instructions before leaving Earth. The Caucasian man did 3 things to the indigenous people and the so-called Amerindians, the Indians. He did 3 things to them. Number 1, a witch hunt. The searching out and deliberate harassment of those with unpopular views. So, he then went on to human sacrifice. They raped them, and then they conducted cannibalism. Okay? So, 4 things actually. So, a witch hunt is what's going to happen to people like myself. I'm not even going to throw that on myself because I don't know what Christ has in store for me. And I know if I can, keep my act together, he'll see me through all of this stuff. But whatever he chooses to see me, see is what it is. But a witch hunt is what's going to happen to a lot of people who tell the truth and don't take the mark of the beast, which is a searching out and deliberate harassment of those with unpopular views. And that harassment is eventually going to escalate into persecution. Okay? So, now I want to take my time out to talk to the Caucasians for a minute. Okay? To the white man, to the Arab man, to the Indian man, to the China man, to all of you all, right? I want to take my time out to speak to you all real quick, right? Then I'm going to go gamble, okay? I'm going to take some family members with me tonight, right? So, anyway, let's go to this message is not for the Negro. This message is for the white man, the Chinaman, whoever else that you think that you're going to keep going against the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. For many of you who think that you're going to keep standing against Christ, I want you all to listen very carefully. And it shall come to pass that everyone that is left of all the nations, so it shall come to pass. So this is kingdom come. This is kingdom come. It shall come to pass that everyone that is left of all the nations, everyone that is left. So these are the Arabs that are left. These are the Chinamen that are left. These are the so-called people that are left. Those of you who eventually bow to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and that you chose life as opposed of getting slaughtered by the sword. These are those of you who are left. Of all the nations which came against Jerusalem, which came against his people, shall even go up year to year to worship the King, Yahuwah of armies, and to keep or to guard the Feast of Tabernacles. And it shall be that whoso will not come up of all the families on the earth, of all the nations on the earth, until Jerusalem, to worship the King, to worship Christ, the Elohim of hosts, Yahuwah of hosts, even upon them shall be no rain. And if the family of Egypt go not up, Egypt is talking about it's a spiritual representation for Babylon, which is where we're at today. And even if that family or of that nation of Egypt go not up and come not, that have no rain, there shall be the plague wherewith Yahuwah will smite the heathen that come not up to keep so if you come not up to celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles, Christ is going to smite you with a plague. This shall be the punishment of Egypt, the punishment of America, the punishment of Vatican City, the punishment of England, the punishment of Spain, or whatever or whatnot. This shall be the punishment of Egypt, and the punishment of all the nations that come not up to celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles. So see, the feast is one kingdom come, Christ is going to set everything back in order. He's going to put all the feast days back in order. There will be no more Thanksgiving. There will be no more Christmas. There will be no more Easter. What does an egg, what does a bunny have to do with the death of God? Christ was not born on December 25th, and Thanksgiving has been built on lies and blood for the past 3,000 years. This is representation of the Sukkot, which has already passed. This is a false representation of the holy day of Christ. This day is in vain. It means nothing. Now, here's the bonus for all of you that stayed. Okay? Let's go to Genesis chapter 7. This is the bonus for all of you that stayed. Genesis chapter 7. Okay? I told you all I had a bonus for y'all, right? Didn't I tell y'all I want y'all to see my face? Didn't I tell you all I had a bonus for y'all? All right, I want y'all to see my face. All right, I want y'all to see my face for this one. Genesis chapter 7. This is for, there has been a lot of discrepancies about what I was saying about, how much time is left? Damn. I'm going to bring my bonus right after this.